Arendora, a support mage, found himself surrounded by a group of 3. It was clear from their cold glares that they held no warmth toward him. Aren suspected they were here to discuss the upcoming expedition, but before he could speak, they delivered shocking news. He had been expelled from the group, effective immediately. Oliver Cardiff, a sword saint, was the one to break the news. His words were blunt. This was serious, and Orn was being removed from the group without consent. Orn, filled with anger, demanded to know why. He reminded them that they were once childhood friends, partners in battle, and had been through so much together. Oliver, however, coldly explained that it was precisely because they shared a past that he had allowed Orn to join the group in the first place. They were from the same village, but now, Oliver said, the challenges ahead would be too much for Orn. Oliver's words were harsh. Orn simply didn't have the skills required. The truth struck Orn like a physical blow. For a moment, he stood there, speechless, as his childhood friend urged him to leave without causing trouble. A flashback took Orn's mind back 8 years, to when he and Oliver had formed a legendary group. They quickly became known as the Hero Group for their exploits. Their achievements were staggering, like conquering the 94th floor of the Southern Great Labyrinth, a place no one had ever reached before. Within years, they had risen to S rank, a testament to their unparalleled talent. Back in the present, Orn questioned why his skills were the sole target of criticism. He asked Oliver why no one else in the group had been singled out like him. Orn tried to reason with Oliver, hoping to make him understand that blaming each other would solve nothing. But Oliver cut him off, explaining that the group had long underestimated the value of a support mage like Orn. However, during last month's Dragon Raid, everything changed. The group had finally realized just how crucial Orn's role was. Oliver, with finality in his voice, delivered the devastating blow. When compared to other S-rank support mages, Orn's spells were lacking. His support magic was simply not up to par. Orn, fist clenched, bowed his head in frustration. He reminded them that he had once been a swordsman, and his lack of skill in magic was inevitable. Before Orn could express his frustrations further, Derek Mosley, the group's security guard, interrupted him. Derek shouted that Orn had switched to support magic because his swordsmanship was inferior to Oliver's. Derek advanced, berating Orn further, claiming that even as a support mage, Orn wasn't good enough to deserve any sympathy. Orn kept his composure, reminding them that the group had once lacked a support mage, which was why he had been chosen. He had the highest aptitude for transformation magic, after all. With quiet confidence, Orn declared that his personal magic had compensated for his weaknesses, helping the group survive the most dangerous depths of the labyrinth. Oliver, unmoved, simply announced that the group was moving on without Orn. They had already found a replacement for him, and while he felt regret, there was no other choice. Orn's vision blurred, his mind clouded with a mix of anger and disbelief. He stood silently, struggling to understand why his old friends would treat him so callously after everything they had been through. In the end, Orn resigned himself to the bitter truth. He no longer had a place among them. He thanked the group for everything and promised to leave without causing them any more trouble. Annalie Wilde, a magician in the group, sneered as she mocked him one last time. Despite Orn's ability to wield both magic and a sword, she called him the Master of Nothing, a derisive taunt that stung. She advised Orn to find something that suited him better. Orn glanced back at her, his eyes heavy with sadness. He reflected on how, despite his unwavering loyalty and devotion to the group, this was how they had always seen him. As he opened the door for the last time, a bitter thought crossed his mind. Why had he ever tried to be part of such a group? The next day, Orn woke late, realizing he had overslept. He had spent the previous day mired in sadness, but today he decided not to dwell on the past any longer. Shaking off the negativity, Orn considered his options for making a living. He had 3 paths to choose from. First, he could continue exploring the labyrinth, gathering materials, and selling them. The second option was to find regular work. It might not bring in much, but it would provide stability. The third option was to open his own store, a high-risk venture with the potential for great reward. After weighing the choices, Orn concluded that the best path was to continue exploring the labyrinth. He didn't care about becoming wealthy. His true goal had always been to be an adventurer. He hadn't come to the city to follow Oliver. He wasn't interested in stalking his former friend. Orn decided to return to his roots and reclaim his identity as a swordsman. He had heard of a newly opened maze, and it seemed the perfect place for him to practice. At the guild, the staff questioned if he was going in alone. Orn wondered if there was an issue with that. She informed him that while there were no rules against it, going alone was dangerous, and he should consider joining a group. Oren thanked her for the advice and asked if she had checked his guild card. When she did, her face fell in surprise. Seeing that Oren was level 94, her demeanor changed instantly. She apologized profusely for her earlier behavior, her tone now much more respectful, and allowed him entry. Oran, surprised by her sudden shift, entered the maze. On the first floor, he encountered a horned rabbit. It seemed like the perfect practice opponent. Oren smiled, realizing that his skills hadn't deteriorated as much as he had feared. With his dull blade, he quickly dispatched the creature. Encouraged, Oren ventured deeper, moving toward the third floor. The monsters were more numerous here, but their intelligence was lacking, making them easy targets. He considered trying out his support magic, something he hadn't used in a while. Support magic, known for enhancing physical strength and weapon effectiveness, could aid both allies and the caster themselves. Oren cast the spell, feeling the familiar surge of power. Support spells were incredibly useful, but they came with a catch. The major flaw was time. The effects of support magic weren't permanent. The duration depended on the user's resistance, and Oren's magic lasted only 180 seconds. Just 3 seconds remained to face the remaining monsters. For support mages, it was always a race against the clock. Oren realized that he had developed a new style of combat, one that combined his swordsmanship with his support magic, an unexpected but effective blend. Oren felt a renewed sense of determination. He was resolved to improve, to reach a point where no one would ever again call him not good at anything. He would become an all-around capable person. His goal now was clear, to become someone who could stand on his own, someone worthy of respect, not just as a mage, but as a complete individual. Finally, Oren reached the 7th floor of the labyrinth. He paused to save his progress with a teleport crystal, allowing him to return to this floor whenever needed. As he was doing so, Oren overheard an argument coming from a nearby group. Their voices were filled with tension. They were berating one of their own for abandoning a girl, using her as bait to escape the monsters. The culprit tried to justify his actions, claiming it was the right choice. Oren froze when he heard that explanation. The man explained that there had been too many monsters, and rather than leaving behind the old members, he had sacrificed the newcomers. Oren's mind raced in disbelief. The words triggered a painful memory. Oren remembered the day he was abandoned by his own group. He could sympathize with the girl, yet part of him blamed her for choosing such reckless teammates. But then, the thought struck him. She might die if no one came to help. He couldn't stay silent. Oren spun around, glaring at the group. He called them nothing but whining children, asking why they weren't going back to save the girl instead of standing around and complaining. Without hesitation, Oren spat that he hated people like them the most, those who abandoned others when things got tough. The man who had abandoned the girl raised his fist, shouting that he had been left behind and couldn't possibly save her. Oren dodged the punch with ease, then knocked the man into the air with a single strike, fury evident in his every movement. He demanded to know where the girl was, his tone leaving no room for refusal. The group's members were visibly shaken, sweat dripping from their brows. 3 of them, terrified, quickly pointed out the girl's location. Without another word, Oren vanished in the blink of an eye, determined to save the girl. Meanwhile, the girl, surrounded by giant monsters, was desperately trying to defend herself, her heart racing in fear. She cast a protective barrier around herself, praying that someone would come in time to save her before her magic collapsed. Oren rushed forward at full speed, his heart set on reaching her before it was too late. He shouted as he charged, declaring that anyone who abandoned their teammates was unworthy of being in a team. The girl, desperate, kept calling out for her sister, hoping she would arrive in time to rescue her. Suddenly, a powerful blast of airshock magic sent the monsters flying, and Oren appeared before her. He calmly told her to focus on keeping the barrier up, while he would take care of the rest. The girl was bewildered, unsure if Oren was a magician or a swordsman. Oren activated support magic, enhancing his strength and precision. His sword became sharper, his movement swifter, as he prepared to face the monsters. The girl watched in stunned silence as Oren's swordplay seemed to defy reality, his magic blending seamlessly with his swordsmanship. Oren assessed the situation, noting that there were about 13 orcs surrounding them. It wasn't hard to see why a lower-level group had fled at the sight of them. He chuckled, commenting that it made sense for a weaker group to retreat, but for him, these orcs were no challenge. With one swift slash, Oren cut down all the monsters, leaving nothing but dust in his wake. He turned back to the girl, asking if she was okay. With a warm smile, Oren used healing magic to tend to her wounds. The girl, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, burst into tears, confessing how terrified she had been. Oren gently patted her head, understanding her fear. He knew how it felt to be abandoned by those who should have been there. She thanked him, her voice shaky, as they heard more monsters approaching. Together, they moved quickly, ready to leave as danger loomed closer. At the maze's exit, the girl introduced herself as Sophia Claude. Oren paused, his mind racing as he recognized the name. He spotted the symbol on her shirt, and it struck him. He knew her family. Sophia's shirt bore the emblem of a prestigious adventurer clan, the Silver Rabbit of the Night Sky, a name Oren recognized. Sophia, in gratitude, invited Oren to dinner. She confessed she couldn't cook, so they would have to dine at a restaurant. Oren blushed, slightly hesitant at first, but eventually agreed. He asked if she had a place in mind. If not, he could offer some suggestions. The conversation started to flow easily between them. The rabbit symbol on Sophia's shirt was a mark of her family's legacy, part of one of the largest and most influential adventurer clans in the city. This clan not only handled the sale and processing of materials gathered from the labyrinth, but they also ran restaurants and stores for additional income. The profits from these ventures helped equip clan members, ensuring their continued strength. Oren was surprised to learn that Sophia's family had so many adventurers, but he wondered why she still chose to join a regular group. As they arrived at a customer's restaurant, Oren was struck by the sight of the girl Sophia had referred to as her sister. The girl scolded Sophia for having a boyfriend at such a young age before turning to face Oren. She greeted him, recognizing him immediately. "It's been a long time, Orna." Her name was Selma Claude, the leader of an S-rank group. She was renowned not only for her beauty, but also as one of the strongest support mages, her skills rivaling those of Oliver's team. In fact, it was Selma who had played a key role in Oren's expulsion from the group. Oliver had compared Oren's abilities to hers, and Oren had fallen short. Selma was also the one who introduced the concept of specialized roles within teams, including roles for offense, defense, and support, ideas that had shaped many of the adventuring groups in the city. Oren was forced to take on the role of a support mage, always overshadowed by Selma's brilliance. He couldn't understand why Selma regarded him with such distrust. It was as if she thought he had ill intentions towards her sister. Oren didn't feel the need to explain himself. Sophia had already done it for him. She called him the one who had saved her. However, this only made things harder for Sophia, who was now scolded for venturing into the dungeon alone. She apologized to Oren, and he finally understood why someone from a prestigious family like Sophia would join a common adventuring party. Oren asked for a moment to sit, feeling the eyes of the others on him as if he were some kind of criminal. He realized they hadn't properly spoken since the War of Cooperation last month. Back then, Selma had been the leader, and Oren had only been a support mate. When Sophia asked Selma how she knew Oren, Selma explained that Oren had once been part of a hero group. Sophia gasped in surprise and suddenly became serious, avoiding eye contact with him. She recalled Oren saying he was no longer with the hero group. He had left just yesterday. Sophia didn't believe that Oren could leave so easily without Oliver's objection. Oren explained that it was a mutual decision, based on personal reasons. Sophia then asked Oren if he was free, and wanted to ask him something. Oren misunderstood, thinking she wanted to recruit him into her clan, so he refused. A voice corrected him, explaining that Sophia was actually inviting him to join a collaborative expedition the day after tomorrow. Sophia revealed that the Silver Rabbit of the Night Sky family had devised a new plan. Several new recruits would attempt to climb to the 51st floor of the southern dungeon within 3 days, under the guidance of a former adventurer. Oren questioned why she was involved in such a dangerous plan, as it usually took 6 to 12 months to complete, even for the best rookies. Sophia admitted the plan was risky, but with the right path, it was doable. She also mentioned that they were working urgently due to pressure from their sponsors. The sponsors pushing for this reckless plan likely had some hidden agenda. Oren remarked that if the recruits could bypass the boss level without fighting, it would greatly benefit the clan. One of the group members widened her eyes, realizing Oren had deduced so much from her words. They began to realize he was sharper than they had thought. Normally, a boss would appear every 10 floors, and recruits would have to defeat it to progress. Many rookies died in these battles, but if veteran warriors distracted the boss while the new recruits snuck past to register at the teleport crystal, they could avoid fighting the boss. Oren asked Selma why she would share such crucial information with an outsider like him. He was deeply surprised. She told him she valued him highly, a realization she had come to during their previous collaboration. Oren wondered why hearing that made him feel so happy. If he accepted the offer, he would have to return to being a support maid, so Oren told Selma he had his own plans. But Sophia looked at him with pleading eyes, like a puppy, asking him to join her. Oren paused for a moment, then he agreed, but he had one condition. He told her that while she had appreciated him as a support mage, he was now a swordsman. He would join as a swordsman. Oren was firm in his condition, refusing to back down. Selma agreed to his terms and invited him to the clan headquarters at 8 p.m. after dinner. After the meal, Oren gave Sophia money for dinner. She realized he was not only kind but strong. However, Selma disapproved of how Sophia's feelings for Oren seemed to be growing. Selma reminded her sister that, compared to Oren, she was no less kind or strong. The two sisters playfully argued, and Selma pondered how to handle the group that had abandoned Sophia. They arrived at the clan headquarters, and Selma focused on those who would join the upcoming expedition. She entered Captain Vince Bryarth's room and shared two important updates. First, she told him Oren had left the heroes' party. Vince commented that without Oren, the heroes' party would lose its edge. He praised Oren's magic, noting it activated 4 times faster than his own, and admired his skill. Selma added that Oren's ability to assess situations was also exceptional. He had all the necessary skills to enhance power. The second update was about Selma's invitation to Oren. Vince seemed fine with it, but asked why Selma was so interested in Oren. He wondered if Selma planned to replace an important member of Team 1 with Oren. The only issue was Oren's condition of becoming a swordsman. It seemed their family was in decline. Meanwhile, Oren encountered someone close to him. He finally broke down, tears flowing as he released his pent-up emotions. Oren dreamed of old memories, playing and sword fighting with Oliver. He had always been weak, and because of that, Oliver had to shoulder the burden of expectations. There was a girl named Shan who had always been by Oren's side. He woke up from the dream, but he couldn't remember who that girl was. Oren stood at the entrance of the southern dungeon, feeling a slight surprise as he looked around. Sophia and Selma approached from behind, greeting him with a cheerful, "Good morning." Oren returned the greeting warmly, but noticed that Sophia seemed different today. He wondered if it was because of her new uniform. Oren complimented her, saying it suited her very well. Sophia blushed and thanked him, while Selma looked on with a curiosity. Annoyed, Selma asked Oren if he was skilled at flirting, or if he was already in a relationship. Oren calmly responded that he had lived with the other members of the hero group, so it wasn't strange to interact like that. Selma, embarrassed by the misunderstanding, noted that all the heroes had lived together in the same mansion. Sophia asked about Oren's current living situation, and he replied he was renting a room. He thought about buying a house, but was hesitant. Selma teased Sophia, asking if she wanted to live with Oran, which made the situation amusing. Sophia quickly denied, claiming she was just curious. Selma, confused by their back and forth, wasn't sure what to make of it. Oren stood apart from the group, and they wondered why. He explained that, as an outsider, he didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. Selma suggested he come closer to help the new recruits feel at ease. Oren agreed and moved closer. Recalling their meeting last night, Oren explained that he had gone to the headquarters as promised and met with Captain Vince, receiving details of the upcoming expedition from Selma. In short, the expedition would last 3 days, climbing from the 1st to the 51st floor of the Great Southern Labyrinth. There would be outdoor camping on certain floors to help the new recruits acclimate. 10 groups of rookies would be led by leaders, with 5 guides, including Selma and Oren, overseeing them. Oren sensed something significant was happening at the Silver Rabbit of the Night Sky headquarters. The preparations for battle were underway. If any unforeseen incidents occurred, the leaders would be responsible. Selma explained that each guide had to manage such situations. She asked Oren if he had any questions about the plan, and he wondered if 5 guides would really be enough. Selma replied that while the goal was to lead the new recruits to the 51st floor, some risks would help them grow. However, Oren felt there were aspects of the plan they hadn't shared with him. Accepting the situation, he agreed to cooperate and move forward. Selma mentioned the payment, 2 gold coins up front and 10 upon completion. Oren found it generous and realized Selma truly appreciated him. Who wouldn't want to take on such a mission with such a reward? The next day, he noticed Captain Vince was quiet, still skeptical about the mission. Oren greeted the 3 people in front of him. He introduced himself as one of the guides, a frontline warrior. Upon learning the formation, he discovered the group included 2 defenders, Onsloman Arnold, and a healer named Kathy. Oren wondered if there was something special about this lineup. Tony exuded confidence in the group. Over the next 4 days, their goal was to guide and welcome the new recruits according to the mission layout. Despite noticing a few oddities, Atron chose to cooperate, hoping to overcome whatever challenges lay ahead. In the morning, Oren greeted everyone warmly, and Selma reminded them of the plan. The climb to the 51st floor of the difficult dungeon began that day. Anxiety was written on everyone's faces. To face their fears head-on, Selma reassured them that unexpected challenges had been accounted for, and they had a powerful ally. Selma introduced their trump card, Oran, who had reached the 94th floor of the dungeon, an achievement none of them had reached. The revelation caused whispers of admiration in the crowd as Oren listened to stories of his history with the hero group, which had turned him into a dungeon expert. The crowd appeared surprised, and questions started to arise. Oren didn't seem to enjoy the attention. A confident voice from the crowd asked if this new assurance would lead them to the 51st floor. A consensus spread, and Selma announced the start of the expedition, causing cheers that lifted the group's morale. As they regrouped, instructions to stay together rang out. Oren asked if the previous encouragement had been too enthusiastic, and Selma admitted that his reputation with the hero group had motivated her words. However, she affirmed that guiding the new recruits was her responsibility. Oren nodded, understanding his role with Teams 9 and 10. Focus shifted to the new recruits, particularly Team 10. Oren wondered if he was capable of leading such promising talents. As the exchange continued, Selma's trust in Oren became clear as he stepped into his leadership role. Oren introduced himself with confidence, pledging to lead them through the next 3 days. Warm smiles and polite greetings were exchanged, leaving Oren humbled by the respect they showed him. In his heart, Oren appreciated this warm welcome, perhaps as a reward for his past with the legendary heroes. Sophia from Team 10 caught Oren's attention as she gathered everyone, recording their names and roles. Oren made sure everyone was present, confirming that Team 10 was formed in a unique configuration of 3 members, a rare and unusual setup. Oren recognized the rarity, knowing a smaller group posed greater risks, especially with new recruits. A voice spoke up, casting doubt on Oren's seemingly reckless attitude. Oren was taken aback by the skepticism, but he understood the concern. The anxiety of what lay ahead echoed in his mind as they prepared to face the challenges of the 51st floor. Oren felt reassured as the group gathered without issue. He nodded in agreement, instructing everyone to begin with introductions. Logan Hayward, the commander of Team 10, stepped forward. As a support mage, he spoke with unwavering confidence, declaring his ambition to surpass Selma in the near future. Oren was surprised by Logan's boldness, but motioned for the next person to speak. Coraline Ingloud, the guard, had piqued Oren's curiosity when she revealed her choice of light armor, despite her role. She explained that she focused on avoidance tactics against magical creatures, striking quickly when the opportunity arose. Oren pondered this, wondering if avoiding direct confrontation might indeed be wiser. Finally, Sophia Claude, with her rare dual role as both an attacker and a mage, introduced herself simply. Her brief introduction left Oren feeling more secure, yet he realized there was more complexity to this task than he had initially thought. With such diverse personalities in the team, he began to reassess the journey ahead, knowing challenges awaited them. The cooperative expedition was officially underway. As they delved deeper into the dungeon, the new recruits became quieter, their initial excitement fading. Coraline of Squad 10 wondered aloud why someone from the hero squad would join them, as they were hardly considered rivals. Oren asked if she hadn't heard Selma's explanation yet. He clarified that he was no longer part of the hero team. The silver rabbit of the night sky had become their target, and they had to be cautious. Coraline wondered why he'd left the hero group, especially when they held him in such high regard. It was every hero's ultimate dream. Oren brushed off Coraline's probing questions, stating that he wasn't comfortable with such interactions. It had nothing to do with her. Coraline grew suspicious, sensing Oren was hiding something, especially when his tone seemed off. Coraline then mentioned Sophia, asking if Oren knew her. Oren confirmed their connection, and Coraline remarked that Sophia had always praised an exceptional individual who would join their mission. Sophia confirmed this, recalling how Oren had once saved her life. Coraline had also heard about Oren's power and his former affiliation with the hero team. Oren wondered if this conversation was meant to alleviate Sophia's stress, but his thoughts were interrupted by the growl of 2 wolves nearby. The roar of the wolves echoed through the dungeon. Oren observed that the traps had worked perfectly, causing the wolves to react. These traps were designed to trigger over time, and their success demonstrated the team's mastery of trapping techniques. The traps were nearly undetectable once set, capable of killing pursuers with minimal effort, conserving energy for more crucial battles. They would waste no time on meaningless fights. As they neared the 20th floor, Coraline asked Oren about their progress. He estimated they had about 10 minutes left at their current pace, which surprised her. Oren believed they could complete the task sooner than expected. He was impressed by how well the team was functioning. Initially skeptical, the group had now found their rhythm. Logan, once considered an arrogant rookie, had demonstrated impressive skills as an enhancement mage. If he could endure prolonged battles, he would seamlessly integrate into the group and prove himself a genius. However, Logan's role as a booster came with a drawback, his weak guiding ability. But as he gained more experience, his strength would grow. Coraline aspired to become an agile defender, but despite her impressive speed, 2 flaws held her back. First, her tendency to rush into battle recklessly made Oren nervous, even though close combat suited her role. Second, her reliance on 2 daggers, while suitable for her personal style, didn't always align with group tactics. Finally, Sophia appeared weaker than the others, but her skills far exceeded that of a typical rookie. Though hesitation remained her flaw, Oren believed that more interaction with the team could help her overcome it. He was intrigued by her potential. There was still much room for improvement within the Night Squadron team. After successfully defeating the boss, the group leader called for a stop. Oren thought to himself, "This is where it ends for today." Some had underestimated the influence of the Dark Knight. Summer directed the 3 of them to head to the 21st floor and register their cards. At the end of the day, they all responded in unison, "Yes, ma'am." Selma acknowledged Oren's efforts, to which he responded briefly, "You too, Selma." She inquired about the new recruits, and Oren shared his thoughts on Team 9's progress, while Team 10 had performed excellently. However, he emphasized the lack of coordination, especially from Coraline. Selma giggled. Caroline had placed 3rd, but it was clear to all that she had come a long way from who she once was. They exchanged greetings and wished each other good night. The sun rose the next day, casting its light across the land. Oren's worries grew clearer as he read the newspaper. The front page revealed that the hero group's replacement of Chanter Oranjura had become public knowledge. Oliver, the group's leader, stated that Oren's lack of magical ability was the reason for his removal. He admitted it openly. The group hadn't fully understood the limitations of Oren's skills, but they had still achieved an extraordinary feat, conquering the 94th floor of the dungeon. Although it was a blow, the addition of Philly Carpenter, a renowned adventurer and support mage, gave the heroes new hope. Philly's arrival breathed fresh life into the team. Oren felt disappointment. He wished Philly's arrival could remain a secret until after their current mission. He worried about the new recruits and how they would view him now, especially Logan from Team 10, whose pride might prevent him from following future orders. While not all recruits would read the article, Oren feared those who did would see him differently. Oren, too, was curious about the situation, but he had no choice but to accept it. As he neared the meeting point, a familiar voice called his name. Runa, the healer of the hero group, remarked that it had been a while since their last meeting, 4 days ago. Oren agreed, admitting that Runa had always been the only one who treated him well when she was part of the group. Her absence during his departure had made him regret things deeply. Runa asked Oren to reconsider joining the group again, insisting that they needed his skills. Oren felt her sincerity, but he questioned whether this was truly the group's wish. Runa clarified that it was her personal plea, and if Oren agreed, she would try to convince the others. Oren's face turned serious as he questioned the truth behind Runa's offer. But she assured him that she hadn't read the article causing the rift. She remembered their promise to conquer the great dungeon together, even though Oliver's actions had led to her leaving. She believed their promise had lost its meaning, a sentiment Oren quietly absorbed. He hoped their trust hadn't disappeared. Realizing that dragging things out would only cause more pain, Oren apologized and walked away, leaving Runa disappointed. Oren knew deep down that even if he wanted to return and keep his promise, there was no place left for him. Sadness overtook him as he accepted the painful truth. It was too late, and everything had changed since that fateful day. Amidst the whispered conversations, the fallout from the article drew the attention of the crowd. Oren stood in the center, wondering how many people would now see him as a failure. The article claimed Oren Dura, once part of a prestigious group, was expelled for his lack of skill. He might have wished he trained harder. The question lingered, was Oren really expelled because of incompetence? Oren greeted the crowd with a simple, "Good morning," a stark contrast to the excitement of the previous day. Confusion filled the air. People could see his worry.
Selma spoke with an apologetic tone, despite having no reason to apologize. She realized that Oren's panic could unravel their cooperative mission, despite his attempts to keep morale high. Caution was needed.
Selma's unwarranted apologies came from her desire to support Oren, even though she wasn't directly involved in the situation. Oren dismissed her concerns, assuring her that he would overcome this obstacle. He took responsibility for not revealing the truth sooner, acknowledging it had unintentionally caused trouble for Selma. He reassured her that he would still contribute to the mission's success, so she could focus on her duties. Selma nodded, placing her trust in Oren's words. As they exchanged reassurances, the atmosphere lightened. The meeting between Teams 9 and 10 was about to begin, and with it came renewed team spirit. Once the group gathered, Oren knew it was time to confess. He admitted the truth. The article was mostly accurate, and he had been removed from the group due to being deemed incompetent. At least Oren was honest with his teammates. Oren expressed regret for not revealing this sooner. Just then, Sophia stepped forward, her voice firm as she defended Oren, recalling how he had swiftly defeated countless enemies. It seemed there were feelings deeper than mere friendship. Sophia believed with certainty that Oren's abilities were not lacking. Oren was grateful for her unwavering support. He clarified that his strength lay not in traditional magic, but in his swordsmanship. Though no longer part of the hero group, Oren vowed he could still lead them to the 51st floor of the dungeon. He promised to protect the group as Arundura, a true hero. His words echoed with the spirit of the previous day's battle, urging them to give their best. As they continued their journey through the 3rd floor of the Yasa dungeon, their teamwork blossomed. The Night Squad fought valiantly against the monsters, and Oren's heart swelled with pride as he saw the trust being rebuilt. Leading by example, Oren shared his guidance, relieved that the heavy stress had lifted. The Night Squad proved that belief, alongside strategy, was key to success. He prayed that no foolishness would break this trust. Finally, the morning tension faded, replaced by unity. Through the challenges ahead, Oren pressed on, bolstered by his teammates' support. Dangerous creatures loomed ahead, and the leader asked, "Is Team 10 ready?" The unanimous yes rang out, full of unwavering determination. The team moved forward, and Oren gave a slight nod. Coraline instructed Oren to distract the goblins, while Logan would use support spells to enhance her strength. Meanwhile, Sophia was tasked with taking out the orcs hiding behind. Oren couldn't help but be impressed by Logan's magical prowess. Casting 3 support spells at once was no feat for a rookie. Despite Logan's impressive skills, Coraline charged boldly into the battle, but the real test came from Sophia, and still haunted by the orcs' previous attack. Just as Oren had predicted, fear gripped her, freezing her in panic. Gently, he tried to reach her, urging her to calm down, reminding her that she was no longer alone. She had the support of Coraline, Logan, and him, her teammates. Realizing she was not alone, Sophia found strength in this new understanding. Oren's words sparked a fire within her. Free from the terror of her past, she summoned a surge of power and cast advanced magic. A whirlwind of chaos erupted. Even Oren was taken aback. This was proof of her growth and resilience. Coraline's cheers and the team's embrace reflected their shared pride and relief. Sophia's victory was celebrated by all, but the next battle still tested their endurance. Despite the hardships, they made their way to the 36th floor. Selma, the team's leader, congratulated everyone on their progress, praising their hard work. With the final day of the expedition ahead, she advised the team to rest and be ready for the last battle. As the group dispersed, Oren was confronted by Bernard and Ansem, but they were quickly stopped by the Night Sky Silver Rabbit tour guides. They invited him to dinner, a rare gesture. Grateful, Oren realized that they hadn't judged him based on the article. and a sense of gratitude filled him as he accepted their offer. As they ate, the conversation shifted towards Sophia. Logan asked if Sophia knew Oren. She confirmed they had only recently met. She recounted the story of Oren saving her deep in the dungeon 3 days ago. The conversation then turned to the dangerous situation they had faced, unraveling the details of that fateful encounter. The day's challenges highlighted the team's strength and unity as they prepared for the final push. Teamwork became their strongest weapon, binding them together. Each step forward was filled with difficulty, but their shared goal kept them moving toward the end, hoping no one would falter now. Logan, still curious, asked Sophia for more details on how Oren had saved hers. With eager eyes, he pressed for every little detail. Sophia seemed confused about the word details, but Logan clarified that he wanted to know about Oren's magic and fighting style. When Sophia tried to recall, she admitted that, at the time, fear of death had clouded her mind. She remembered Oren using a magic that created intense wind pressure, something she thought was called shockwave. But that wasn't enough for Logan, who pressed her for more. Sophia remembered that Oren had also used support magic to enhance his sword. Logan's eyes widened in surprise. Logan asked again, incredulously, "Oren uses a sword?" Sophia confirmed that Oren had used his sword to swiftly defeat the orcs. Logan was stunned. The fact that Oren could not only use magic but also fight with a sword intrigued him deeply. Sophia added that, although she wasn't entirely sure, she remembered Oren mentioning he had taken up swordsmanship after leaving the hero group. This revelation shocked Logan further. He could hardly believe that Oren had transformed in such a way, especially after seeing him act as a support mage just days ago. Logan reflected on the morning when he had been disappointed. After reading about Oren's expulsion from the hero group, he had admired Oren, and the news had shattered his expectations. Throughout the expedition, Logan had followed Oren's instructions because of his role. He admitted that the way the first battle was planned had bored him. But the battle with the orcs had changed everything. Logan had watched in awe as the orcs' movement slowed. This moment reshaped his view of Oren. He couldn't believe there was a support magic that could weaken an enemy's abilities. He explained that such magic was advanced and incredibly difficult to cast, requiring precise knowledge of the target's magical resistance and the right formula. Even skilled mages like Selma struggled with it. The fact that Oren could cast it so easily only proved his extraordinary power. The only word Logan could think to describe Oren was awesome. Their first battle together had been a test of everyone's skills, after which the team had received instructions tailored to each individual's abilities. This had allowed them to progress smoothly. Logan noted that while Oren's fighting style hadn't changed drastically, his skills had grown immensely. Logan clenched his fists, excited as he saw the clear difference in Oren's abilities. Oren, as a support mage, had far exceeded all Logan's initial expectations. What Logan couldn't understand was why Oren had chosen to become a frontline fighter. But even so, Oren had proven his worth by effortlessly dispatching dozens of orcs. Sophia and the rest of the team admired Oren and aspired to be like him. As Logan pondered how Oren had become such an exceptional frontline fighter, he bowed his head and admitted that, despite being called a genius by many, a true genius was someone like Oren. Logan's resolve strengthened as he narrowed his eyes, vowing not to give up. He knew he had to succeed as an adventurer, no matter what, and to do that, he was determined to learn from Oren. His teammates noticed his intense expression and called out to him, to which Logan replied he was just fired up for tomorrow's exploration. Meanwhile, at a restaurant affiliated with the Silver Rabbit of the Night Sky, Oren's team was getting to know him better. Bernard, the team leader, encouraged everyone to drink heavily, but Oren reminded them that the expedition would continue the next day. Hanslem stood beside Oren, reminding the others of their responsibility to guide the new recruits. Realizing that both Oren and Hanslem were serious, Bernard agreed to limit the drinking to midnight. Oren remarked that, since Bernard's team often frequented such expensive restaurants, they must have earned a great deal. Bernard laughed, and explained that their salaries were actually modest compared to the heroes' party, as their missions were essentially suicide missions. Still, they wanted to enjoy a good meal before facing danger. A member asked Oren if he had lived a lavish life when he was with the heroes' party. Oren explained that, due to his administrative duties, he hadn't had much time to enjoy such luxuries. Bernard asked curiously if Oren was still in touch with the former members of the hero group, mentioning rumors of internal conflicts. The articles about this issue had upset Oren. Normally, he avoids answering such questions, but this time he shared that everyone in the heroes party has their own hobbies and interests. As a result, they often enjoy their private free time and rarely dine together. Everyone was stunned to hear Oren speak so openly about his former team. They asked him about his role as a support mage in the heroes party, recalling that in their first meeting, he had claimed to be a frontline attacker who also wielded magic in battle. Oren clarified that he had used magic to assist mages during joint expeditions, but now he was a swordsman. They were curious why he had switched to swordsman after leaving his team. Oren explained that he had originally been a swordsman in the heroes party, a position he had earned through his own efforts. He had always admired the role, and leaving the team seemed like the perfect chance to chase his dream. They asked why he was so passionate about swordsmanship from a young age. Oren revealed it was because of his older brother's influence. Once, when a monster attacked their village, his grandfather, a former adventurer, had defeated it with a single stroke. That moment had inspired Oren since childhood. They then wondered why he had agreed to become a support mage in the heroes party if he loved swordsmanship so much. Oren explained that as the team ventured deeper into the dungeon, they realized the need for a support mage. One team member had assessed the situation, and since Oren was versatile, the responsibility naturally fell to him. Thanks to his contributions, the team had advanced to the 94th floor of the dungeon, and at the time, Oren believed the role switch was the right choice. However, he now admitted that it had been a mistake. Oren began to think that perhaps he had been too hard on himself. But the truth was that without him, the heroes party would never reach the 94th floor again. When asked what the ideal swordsman looked like, Oren replied that he admired those who could conquer the deepest dungeon levels single-handedly. Meanwhile, Sophia wondered if she should ask Oren to stay after their expedition. She admitted that it would be sad if they had to part ways. The Silver Rabbit's tutorial mission, requested by the Tengen clan, had begun, and Oren hoped everything would go smoothly. He overheard a conversation about a new expedition team preparing to venture deep into the dungeon, and Oren wondered if they were talking about the team he had in mind. This dungeon had 92 floors, and his team was about to reach the third today. The goal seemed to be to assess the new team. Oren realized he had to take action first, but it stung to see his old team, who had abandoned him, moving forward so quickly with new members. It felt like a slap in the face to Oren. The first task would be confirming cooperation at the lower levels, where the risks were minimal. After thinking it over, Oren decided to stop overthinking the situation. 2 days ago, at the Heroes Party's headquarters, they had recruited a new member named Philly Carpenter, in the presence of the guard, Derek, and the magician Ansel. The leader of the Heroes Party, Sword St. Oliver, was also there. Oliver was a renowned adventurer with outstanding abilities and great reputation. Philly appeared to be a support mage, and Oliver was proud to add her to the team. Philly quickly compared her ability to create powerful buffs with Oren's weak ones. The conversation suddenly shifted to Oren's management of the group's finances. Philly was shocked by the excessive spending on lavish meals for her. Derek remarked that the savings in the account were almost shocking, calling Oren a miser for hoarding so much money. To him, money should be spent, not saved. Oliver recalled that Oren had been in charge of managing the finances before. While he always knew the amount of money coming in, he had never been aware of the details. Derek accused Oren of secretly using their money, and stated that letting her handle it was a mistake. He agreed with Oliver's decision to expel her. Philly defended Oren, suggesting that she was saving for the group's future activities. It seemed like Oren was the only one still thinking clearly. She listed several essential expenses, including expeditions and villa rentals, that required funding. Just then, Runa, the healer, burst into the room, panic-stricken. She froze when she saw Philly and interrupted her sentence. Oliver immediately noticed her distress and realized the issue likely involved Oren. Runa had not been told that Oren had been expelled. She only knew the group was planning to kick him out, a decision she had opposed. Oliver had chosen to expel him while she was absent. Oliver, annoyed, hinted that Runa might have feelings for Oren. He told her to speak her mind in front of Philly. Runa asked why Oren had joined the great dungeon expedition with the Silver Rabbits of the Night Sky, wondering how things had come to this. Oliver, normally calm, was thrown into confusion, his brow sweating as he pictured his old friend joining their rival group. Only 3 days had passed since Aron's expulsion, and Oliver couldn't believe he had the courage or ability to join such a famous group. The others were outraged, unable to believe Oren would think he could function as an S-rank member. Runa demanded to know what had happened while she was away. Oliver tried to reassure her, but Ansel blurted out that Oren had left the group. Runa was stunned by this revelation, and she wondered if Oren had abandoned them. Derek quickly corrected himself, shouting that they were the ones who had abandoned Oren by sending him away. Runa's anger flared when she realized the decision had been made without her input. She declared that the group would surely fail because the one person who held them together had left. Oliver still couldn't understand why Runa held Oren in such high regard. Oliver told Runa that no matter how she felt, there was nothing that could be done now. He declared that the group would face a trial on the 92nd floor of the dungeon. Runa protested fiercely, calling it a suicide mission, insisting they couldn't survive without Oren. This angered Oliver. Runa suggested they take on an easier floor instead. Runa coldly ignored Philly's greeting, the one chosen to replace Oren in the group. Her fury evident, she stormed out of the room. Philly felt the sting of rejection, saddened by her inability to connect with the team. But beneath her sorrow, she hid her true intentions, pretending to be defeated. The next day, during the test, Oliver noticed Philly's buffs fading too quickly. Once gone, the team's bodies became heavy. He remembered how Oren's buffs never faltered, sustaining them for hours. Oliver suspected Philly's poor performance might be due to their sudden leap to the 92nd floor. He asked her to watch for beasts attacking from blind spots, as an enchanter had a comprehensive view of the battlefield. Philly trembled and refused, saying that even using magic was too overwhelming, let alone guiding the group. A cold sweat formed on Oliver's brow as the situation spiraled. He turned to Ansel, who cast familiar spells, but they seemed too weak to harm the monsters. Oliver cursed as he realized his own power had dwindled too. The mystery deepened. No one understood why their strength had faded. Only Runa remained composed. Oliver asked if Runa understood what was happening. Runa was irritated by their ignorance. She dodged the question, making Oliver and the others uncomfortable. Just as Runa was about to reveal the cause of their weakness, a sound echoed above. A deep chill ran through Oliver as he looked up. There before them was the black dragon of the 92nd floor. Its black scales gleamed, and its enormous wings spread wide. Oliver felt a wave of dread. This was a death sentence without Oren. The black dragon's black scales made both magical and physical attacks useless. Its powerful legs could crush any challenger. Its roar could freeze the bravest adventurers' souls. With a flap of its wings, the dragon asserted its dominance, slowly advancing toward the group. Oliver wondered why it had appeared here. The Southern Great Maze's rules stated that bosses appeared every 10 floors until the 90th. Though powerful, each boss was confined to a specific area. But this black dragon was the 92nd floor's boss, an enemy they had previously defeated with Oren. There was no time to dwell on it. Runa shouted at Oliver, reminding him that their priority now was to deal with the black dragon. They were outside the boss's domain, which was why Oliver was so shocked. The black dragon landed with such force that it created a shockwave, flinging Oliver's team like ragdolls. Eric was severely injured, and the team began to blame Philly for failing to cast protective spells. Philly stood frozen, paralyzed by fear. Oliver realized that fear had overtaken her. He thought of how Oren would have immediately buffed Derek. Even in such a tense moment, how could Philly, supposedly a powerful witch, lose her composure? Runa urged Oliver to buy them more time to retreat, especially as the black dragon began forming a fireball in its mouth. Oliver realized that if they stayed, they would be wiped out. With no other option, he shook Philly, snapping her back to reality, and ordered her to buff his strength so he could fight. Philly, still frightened, obeyed his command. With a surge of power, Oliver felt a newfound confidence to face the threat. Gripping his sword, he prepared to fight back. Using his supernatural powers, he cast a spell called Magic Convergence, making his sword glow a brilliant yellow. Runa explained that humans and demons used magic differently, and Oliver's supernatural power wasn't something ordinary humans could wield. This magic allowed him to amass energy and unleash destructive force, despite its simple appearance. Oliver tried using the Heaven/Covenant, hoping it would deal significant damage. In past battles, this slash had severed the black dragon's wings, rendering it slower and less able to chase them. But this time, his strike barely left a mark on the dragon's scales. The black dragon whipped its tail with terrifying force, sending Oliver, once the most renowned adventurer, crashing to the ground. The sight of their leader, motionless and wounded, struck terror into the hearts of his team. Oliver, usually brimming with confidence, now realized his heavenly slash was ineffective against this beast, yet he refused to accept defeat. Runa called out to him, worried if he was all right. Normally, Oliver would have quickly devised a new strategy, but now fear clouded his mind. He turned to Runa, his voice trembling with frustration, and asked, "What do we do now?" Runa reminded him that, as the leader, it was his responsibility to make the call. She urged him to regain his focus and suggested using the Caprica store. The Caprica store could connect their location to another, allowing instant travel, but only within the dungeon. The destination would be random, likely a boss area. Runa also warned that they would have to face another floor's boss immediately after, but it was still better than facing the Black Dragon. Oliver agreed immediately. He announced that they would use the Caprica store and ordered everyone to jump in as soon as the space warped. As Oliver opened the portal and the team prepared to leap in, the Black Dragon lashed out, its tail striking, hindering their movements. Oliver couldn't understand how the Black Dragon could be so powerful. Just as the dragon charged towards them, the group was unexpectedly teleported through the gate. The Black Dragon too had used the Caprica store. Though the team's lives were spared, another group would now face the wrath of the Black Dragon. Oliver's team would be held accountable for this. They had fled to protect their lives, but Runa convinced them to recruit Auron again, for he was the source of their true strength. They were brought back to the Adventurers Guild for treatment and to discuss their next steps. Meanwhile, Auron's team had reached the 36th floor of the Southern Great Labyrinth. They were elated, knowing this was the final day of their expedition. They aimed to conquer floors 36 to 50 before returning home. Though the journey felt shorter, excitement about going home seemed absent. The group gathered to discuss a new strategy. The leaders would handle the demonic beast that the new recruits couldn't defeat. Boss fights required teamwork. Auron sensed unease in the labyrinth that morning, a feeling he knew was rarely wrong. Though uncertain, Auron kept his optimism, believing it was simply the strange expression on Logan's face or the maze itself causing him discomfort. Dismissing his concerns, he focused on Caroline, a member of Team 10, planning to advise her on playing more defensively. He believed she should focus on drawing the monster's attention to help her teammates. Caroline, however, disagreed. She didn't want to burden her teammates with more work. She insisted on staying in the vanguard, determined to take matters into her own hands, disregarding cooperation. This was when Auron mentioned Albert, the ace of the Silver Rabbits of the Night Sky clan, who had died in battle with the Black Dragon. Albert's death had significantly weakened the clan, as Selma had once told him. Auron's mention of Albert struck Caroline deeply, but rather than fear, it fueled her resolve. She believed Albert had sacrificed himself to protect his comrades and preserve the clan's legacy. Auron realized that his words no longer swayed Caroline, so he decided to step back and place his trust in her. Caroline smiled at his response. At that moment, Sophia interrupted, asking Auron for advice on how to grow strong. Auron, understanding the responsibility of his answer, asked Sophia to explain her understanding of magic. Sophia shared that magic draws on ambient energy, and the ability to activate these forces was unique to Hexen beasts. Humans, who couldn't use magic naturally, could now harness it through special technology. Auron was impressed with Sophia's understanding, yet he was cautious, wondering if delving deeper into the process would confuse her. He decided to ask for more details. Sophia answered perfectly, leaving no room for doubt about her intelligence. Auron acknowledged her abilities and promised to help her hone her skills, making her thrilled and grateful. They pressed on, reaching the 40th floor of the labyrinth. Continuing their discussion on parallel structures, Auron explained how to combine multiple formulas at once, a critical skill for advanced magicians. Though Sophia was unsure, Auron reassured her, mentioning that everyone could master it with practice. He even noted that Logan was particularly adept at this. The complexity overwhelmed Sophia, but Auron explained how parallel construction was essential for high-level magic, especially when dealing with difficult monsters. As Sophia grasped the significance of parallel magic, she promised to master it, eager to impress Auron. Auron admired her intellect and promised to teach her the essential skills and techniques to enhance her abilities. This filled Sophia with immense joy and gratitude. They continued their journey towards the 40th floor of the maze. Their conversation still centered around parallel structures. Auron explained that parallel structure was the art of creating two or more formulas simultaneously. He stressed that this skill was crucial for advanced magicians. Sophia felt a bit overwhelmed, as it sounded far too difficult for her, but Oren reassured her, explaining that anyone could manage to create multiple formulas once they became accustomed to it. He mentioned that Logan had mastered this skill effortlessly, and some could even construct dozens of formulas at once. This thought left Sophia's mind spinning. She couldn't grasp why parallel construction was so essential. That's when Oren began to explain the 4 levels of attack magic: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and special. He believed that if she could master special level magic, reaching the status of an advanced magician would be within her grasp. Oren continued, speaking of the lower floors, where beasts required more than a single attack to defeat. He explained how parallel magic could make a difference in such dire situations. Upon hearing this, Sophia understood the power of parallel magic and vowed to do her best to master it, eager to make her new teacher proud. Oren still thought it would be best for Sophia to learn from veteran clan members or even Selma, but it was clear that Sophia only wanted Oren to be her teacher. She was aware that this would likely be a challenging request for him. Oren agreed to teach Sophia, provided Selma gave her consent, since he was, after all, a near stranger to her. Yet, it was obvious that Sophia had special feelings for Oren, so asking Selma for permission wouldn't likely cause any issues. A few minutes later, they reached the boss area, where Oren would demonstrate his abilities. They teamed up with Selma on this floor, and she instructed them to follow their roles. The team leaders asked Oren to take the lead, which seemed to satisfy him. He promised to focus everyone's attention on the battle, stating he would need only 2 minutes, which made the leaders chuckle at his bold confidence. Oren told Sophia to hide, and she watched from a distance as the leaders fought. This was the first time she had witnessed such a battle, vastly different from the fighting style she was accustomed to. She watched as the 2 defenders drew the giant monster's attention, while Oren attacked from a blind spot, directing their focus to the monster's lower body. Selma and Cassie strengthened their attacks on its upper body with magic. It was clear this team wasn't wasting any time, despite this being their first collaboration. Sophia deeply wished she could be like them. When the final battle concluded, and the team thanked Oren for his immense support, Oren suddenly felt his power surge. His combat skill, equipment durability, and magical strength all skyrocketed by 100 times. Together, they broke through the monster's defenses, leaving only the shell to shatter. The group waited for Selma's signal. As soon as Selma shouted, "Start!" the entire team rushed in to attack. In an instant, they defeated the boss monster, claiming victory over the 50th floor. The atmosphere was filled with jubilation as they celebrated their hard-won success, believing everything was coming to a close. However, their celebration was cut short when a massive black dragon appeared, shattering their joy. Oren's worst fears were realized as he stood beside Sophia, facing a terrifying new threat. The black dragon loomed before them, a monstrous force that should not have been here. It belonged in the deeper levels, a tyrant of the labyrinth, destroying adventurers with its deadly black fire. The entire group was frozen, stunned by the appearance of the beast, unable to comprehend how it had arrived in this area. Fear spread like wildfire, paralyzing everyone, but Selma quickly recognized that they were facing certain death if they did not act fast. Yet, Oren moved faster than her. He barked orders to the leaders to protect the new recruits at all costs. The recent battle had sparked something inside Oren, giving him a renewed sense of determination. This motivated Selma to rally the group, urging them to keep fighting. They cast magical barriers around the defending warriors, positioning themselves swiftly to shield against the black dragon's attacks. The pressure was overwhelming. The entire group relied on their protection. As the dragon unleashed a fireball, everyone realized they could die in an instant. But Oren's agility skill enhanced the magical barrier's effectiveness, while allowing them to survive the attack. Oren was relieved to see them safe, yet he remained perplexed by the dragon's presence. It shouldn't be here. It belonged on the 94th floor or higher. Something was clearly wrong. Who could be behind this? Or had the system completely malfunctioned? For now, those questions had to wait. Oren knew survival was the priority, and they had to figure out a way to escape this deadly situation. The path to level 51 was open, and they stood at the transmigration crystal after defeating the level boss. A sudden idea struck him. If they could reach the crystal, they could escape. But he was the only one still able to move freely, meaning if he wanted to survive, he'd have to abandon the group. But since ghostly monsters were drawn to crowds, Oren knew the black dragon would soon head toward his team. He had no choice but to fight the dragon. He couldn't be the sole survivor. His mission was to lead the new adventurers to level 51. So he made the decision to stay and fight. Without hesitation, Oren launched himself at the black dragon, throwing a sword directly at its eyes.
Then he used his temporarily increased skills to strike from the air.
Selma watched, hoping to see signs of the dragon's defeat. But she was disheartened when it returned, unscathed. This made Oren realize that defeating the dragon would require more than just this attack. Oren ordered the leaders to continue protecting the new recruits, while he faced the black dragon alone. Oren was certain of his chance to win, so he deliberately drew the dragon's attention, forcing it to focus solely on him. As the monster shifted its gaze to Oren, he used a reflective shield to send the dragon's attack back at it, causing the entire crowd to gasp in astonishment, as they had no idea such magic even existed. Then, Oren activated all his skills, casting every form of basic support magic and parallel magic at once, a technique that was nearly impossible to perform. Selma hesitated, wondering if she should lend him support, but when the barrier collapsed due to its weak magic, Selma was stunned to see that Oren still maintained his magic, and even amplified it several times, something she had never heard of before. This terrified her, as she couldn't predict the extent of Oren's current fighting power. In the blink of an eye, Oren closed the distance to the dragon, earning admiration from the group members. His physical strength had grown immensely, shocking everyone with his overwhelming power in this battle. However, this magic had its drawbacks. It only affected Oren and could only be used in short bursts, due to the immense strain of managing up to 30 techniques at once. The magical burden was too much for him, and it was evident that it was wearing him out. Oren realized that he had to end the battle quickly, or risk dying. He didn't remember exactly when it happened, but when he and Oliver were children, they had stumbled upon their entire town, slaughtered by thieves during training. Their first reaction had been tears, but then they vowed to become strong enough that no one could ever take anything precious from them again. No matter what happened, they promised to protect what mattered most with their strength. Oren recalled that promise during his battle with the Black Dragon, remembering how cruel the world had been then. But it was that very event that had driven him to become an adventurer, it's seeking strength and knowledge. Oren knew he had to cast aside all limits to protect everyone, and that was his only focus now. He told himself it wasn't difficult. He simply had to defeat the enemy before him. Selma couldn't believe Oren actually intended to face the Black Dragon alone, but she also understood that the effort to enhance his skills had taken a lot out of him. All she could do was protect the new recruits and let Oren focus on the fight, knowing the pressure was squarely on him. Suddenly, the dragon launched an attack while Oren was airborne and unguarded. It was a surprise assault, but Oren had already anticipated it. He swiftly conjured magic to create a platform in the air, lowering himself to the ground with the dragon beneath him. The entire team watched in awe as they witnessed this extraordinary display. Selma realized that Oren's unique abilities could only be harnessed by someone like him or Oliver, who could gather magic and manifest it. Oliver often used it for powerful attacks, making it a fascinating supernatural gift. Oren unleashed his magical power, allowing him to soar through the air and overpower the Black Dragon. He continued to sharpen his abilities, dealing more damage to the dragon's tough scales, while the crowd cheered him on. At that moment, someone noticed an unusual expression on Oren's face, and shortly after, a massive explosion erupted, clouding everyone's vision. When the smoke cleared, Sophia was relieved to see that Oren had evaded the dragon's strike, though it seemed that things were about to take a darker turn. The Black Dragon remained standing, its mist now transformed into a weapon. This was an attack no one had ever seen before. Oren quickly understood the dragon's trick. It was absorbing magic from the surroundings, using a technique called convergence of forces. The Black Dragon's main attacks were swift strikes with fireballs or its tail, but the real threat was the purple mist, which could shift into forms like a whip or spear, allowing the dragon to strike from every angle. Oren realized the Black Dragon still hadn't fought seriously, which made him furious. It was time for him to unleash his own fireball. While quickly closing the distance to the dragon, narrowly avoiding the dangerous mist. However, the dragon suddenly sped up its attacks, making it harder for Oren to dodge. He quickly raised an earth wall between them, realizing he needed to maintain a safe distance. Moments later, Oren's confidence wavered when he saw his earthen barrier was proving ineffective. The entire team understood this battle was a true test of endurance, and Selma grew increasingly concerned, as the dragon had yet to strike the final blow. Meanwhile, Oren remembered the last time he faced this dragon with a group of heroes, when Derek and Runa handled the mist, and Oliver and Neri focused on the firepower. He realized it wasn't just firepower that had brought the dragon down, making him wonder if he could replicate their success. Since he was the only one left to face it, Oren reminded himself of the promise he had made as a child, reaffirming that he had to believe in himself to defeat the Black Dragon. Selma tried to understand the battle, realizing that defending against the dragon's attacks was nearly impossible. Oren pushed the Black Dragon back, protecting everyone in a heroic display. His agility amazed Selma as he dodged each strike with the grace of a seasoned defender. She never imagined such moves could be executed against the Black Dragon. Without Derek by his side, Oren continued to evade, showing no need for a healer's aid. As he charged toward the dragon, memories of Oliver, Neri, and his past friends from the hero group flashed through his mind. Oren's strike on the dragon caused minimal damage, but that wasn't his goal. His plan wasn't to inflict immediate harm, but to grab the monster's attention. He cast a series of spells and taunted the Black Dragon, asking if it had ever seen such magic before, unleashing a flurry of attacks. As expected, the magical assault barely harmed the dragon, but Oren was ready for his next move. He began the magic amplification sequence, and Selma saw the power behind his spells intensify. Selma recognized that the amplification chain allowed magic to absorb surrounding energy, making Oren's attacks far stronger. It was a unique technique he had created, merging magic and convergence. During this, Oren braced himself to counter the dragon's magical strike, and his sword changed color, from black to something unique, unlike Oliver's golden weapon. With the sword in hand, Oren stood resolute, a true hero ready to face the dragon. The clan members watched him. Seeing Oren take on the mantle of the entire hero group, no one doubted his determination to bring the Black Dragon to its knees. With a mighty slash, Oren hoped the blow would cripple the dragon's movement. However, he wondered how the dragon could predict the target of his attack. Oren realized that the Black Dragon had been struck by Oliver's heavenly flash before, which explained its impressive defense. The dragon now guarded its wings and tail fiercely. Despite being engulfed by the dragon's fog attack, Oren regained his composure. The battle had escalated into something far more serious. Oren invoked magic convergence once again, but he knew time was running out as his magical supports began to fade. Seeing Oren struggle, Selma attempted to assist with support magic. Yet, Oren, with the pride of a powerful mage, declined her help. He didn't want anything to interfere with his magical convergence. He told Selma and the others to focus on protecting themselves, not him. Seeing his resolve, Selma agreed and stepped back. All she could do now was cheer and hope the team could hold on. Though they couldn't see clearly, it was obvious Oren was still battling fiercely. One team member couldn't believe what he was witnessing. Sophia reassured him, saying there was no need to worry. Oren was incredible, and had become their hero. The Black Dragon remained formidable until Oren managed to bring it down with a self-inflicted wound, hinting at the dragon's weakened state. Yet the Black Dragon still had its mist, which it used once more to surprise its opponents. It was astounding that such a beast still possessed so much strength. At that moment, Oren summoned the magic sword, causing the team to notice a dark mass forming beneath him. He struck with the magic sword, and a wave of pressure filled the air, making the team uneasy. The end of the battle seemed distant, but before hope could fade, Selma noticed the black sword in Oren's hand, drawing the team's attention. No one could believe that the sword was forged right in the labyrinth, and they could feel its energy was completely different from the ones Oren had wielded before. Magic seemed to condense around the sword, revealing it to be a cube-shaped weapon that combined magical support and convergence, hardened by the earth itself. It was clear to everyone that Oren's power surpassed even special-class magic. However, Selma's thoughts were interrupted by another attack from the Black Dragon. Oren knew the dragon's attack was deadly, but he knew he couldn't delay any longer. It was time to get serious. He summoned the reflective barrier once more, and leapt to evade the dragon's strike, using the barrier to rush at the beast from above, combining it with a weight-enhancing spell to crash down onto the dragon. Screaming with all his might, he poured every ounce of his energy into the attack, Selma was initially terrified by the attack. She wondered if Orin was all right and whether the black dragon had been defeated. Slowly, she opened her eyes, her heart racing. The black dragon's massive form lay motionless on the ground. Orin stood nearby, holding his black sword, exhaustion written across his face. He glanced back at his team, feeling their unwavering bond. They had won, but the journey ahead remained uncertain, and the cost had been high. Sophia's voice broke the silence, her exclamation loud and clear. Again, Sophia cried out, her concern evident. The group quickly gathered, checking on Orin, relieved to see that he wasn't seriously injured. Not long ago, Orin had faced the Black Dragon at the Adventurers Guild. It was the final day of the mission, and an emergency had occurred. Runa rushed inside, urgently telling the guild leaders to call for help. Time was running out. She introduced their group as Golden Dawn, a team of heroes. This name had been chosen by Oliver nearly 9 years ago, and it had stuck ever since. Runa explained that a monster shouldn't have appeared on that floor, and that their team was severely wounded. Eleonora, a guild employee, immediately understood the gravity of the situation. She agreed to contact the guild leader for support and ordered the others to keep trying to reach their team leader. Moments later, they sat in the meeting room with the guild leader, Leon. The heroes apologized for disturbing him, but explained that they needed urgent help, leaving the guild leaders puzzled. Leon asked why the sudden urgency. Runa began to explain that they needed every explorer from the Great Labyrinth to return through the portal. Despite her exhaustion, Runa felt a sense of relief when her request was partially accepted. She wished Orin were there to make things easier, but her resolve to protect the adventurers in the labyrinth remained strong. Leon spoke up, emphasizing that they needed a good reason to act, as teleportation magic involved numerous people. Runa realized she had been hasty. She quickly explained that the reason for her request was the Black Dragon. It was no ordinary monster, but one of the most dangerous ever encountered in the labyrinth. Its movement from the 92nd floor could cause irreparable damage if they didn't act fast. Leon's eyes grew serious when he heard the name Black Dragon. He asked if they were referring to the creature from the 92nd floor, something unprecedented. Runa confirmed, explaining that Orin had been the one to battle the beast. While they had won, its sudden appearance signified something was terribly wrong in the maze. While some guild leaders questioned the truth of Runa's account, but Leon silenced them, stressing that action was urgent. After a brief discussion, they voted to approve Runa's request, agreeing to deploy an emergency teleportation spell. Leon paused, considering the situation before confirming that it was urgent. He asked Runa for all the details about the encounter with the Black Dragon so they could better assess the threat. Realizing the severity of the situation, Leon immediately called for an emergency meeting with the association's key members. He announced that they would vote on Runa's request, and urged others to voice any doubts. Runa knew the truth was still unclear, but she steeled herself to face the challenges ahead. Runa felt a rush of relief when her request was approved, though the threat of the Black Dragon still loomed large. She hoped the retreat plan would proceed without complications, and that they would soon find a way to deal with the terrifying creature. She knew it was Orin who had given them the strength to win over the council. His influence had helped the team adapt. She then turned to Leon, asking another favor about the teleportation process. She requested to transfer adventurers from levels 45 to 50 near the Great Labyrinth, hoping they could join Orin in his exploration. Fortunately, Leon agreed, proceeding with the teleportation preparation. He instructed his team to gather magical energy for the spell. Meanwhile, Runa prayed that Orin would lend his magic to help them. She longed to hear from him, to understand what had happened, and to apologize to him. As the teleportation was completed, Leon turned to the heroes and declared it was time to confront and defeat the Black Dragon. They remained behind to assist the bewildered adventurers, all of them hoping to succeed in their mission together. Before Runa could speak to her team about finding Orin, Derek suddenly interrupted. He argued that they didn't need someone like Orin. On their way to the guild, Derek had been speaking to everyone, and it was clear he doubted the magic Runa had mentioned. Anoli supported Derek's view, claiming their failure was due to the Black Dragon's surprise attack, not any lack of strength on their part. Runa was stunned. Her teammates were still in denial, completely blind to the reality of their situation. She decided to give them one last lesson, pointing out that their team was currently the weakest among the S-rank teams. They couldn't defeat the Black Dragon without help. Eric refused to listen, overly confident in his team's abilities. Runa, frustrated, insulted him for the first time. reminding him that they owed their success to Oren's support. Without Oren, Derek and Anoli would only be skillless adventurers. Runa made it clear they needed to recognize their weakness. Derek, angered by Runa's words, rushed at her with his sword. Runa calmly told him that she would easily defeat him in a duel. But before Derek could strike, he found himself frozen, unable to move. Runa stood before him, her gaze filled with disappointment. The conflict escalated until Oliver stepped in, commanding them to stop. Oliver insisted that they first find Oren, as only then could they decide on their next move. Derek, too angry to argue, reluctantly agreed. Runa felt uncomfortable that Oliver had intervened so late in the conflict. A few minutes later, they arrived at the entrance of the Great South Maze. They were shocked to find the Black Dragon's body there. Their first instinct was that something was wrong. There were too many people nearby, and they decided to approach cautiously, never letting their guard down. The crowd quickly parted as they recognized the hero's party, but no one wore a smile. After confirming the dragon was truly dead, their eyes fell upon Oren. He held his sword loosely at his side. Oren spoke without delay, claiming they had arrived just in time. Runa wondered if the Silver Rabbit of the Night Sky clan had been the one to kill the dragon, until she noticed Oren was the only one severely wounded. Oren looked drained, too exhausted to speak, and turned to leave after handing Runa something to examine. Runa was stunned to learn that Oren had taken down the Black Dragon while her team hadn't even come close. Oliver's anger flared. He stepped in front of Oren, his cold gaze like death itself. But without a word, Oliver let him pass. That night, Sophia sat down to write in her diary. It had been an extraordinary day for her. She believed Oren was too much for her, for he had saved her once again, and she found herself daydreaming of his ever-kind face. Oren had become the most remarkable person she knew, and her cheeks flushed with admiration. Later, Selma returned home, her hair a tangled mess and clearly too exhausted to stand. She collapsed onto the bed, not even bothering to shower. Sophia suggested they bathe together to unwind. As they soaked in the warm water, Sophia was pleased to see Selma finally looking a little better. Yet, something seemed to weigh heavily on her sister's mind. She asked about Selma's thoughts on the battle between Oren and the Black Dragon. Most new recruits didn't fully grasp the situation, but Selma was curious to know what insights Sophia had gained from this particular conflict. Sophia began to explain how Oren's fighting style and movements were nothing like those of a normal human, and the magic he used was unlike anything she had ever seen. She had thought it was just a basic match. She continued, telling Selma that Oren applied all the skills and techniques she had learned in her training, making Selma realize that one person was actually orchestrating everything for the team. Sophia had decided that she wanted to be as impressive as Oren. Selma, recalling the battle, remembered witnessing Oren's superhuman strength, making her feel like she was in a world far beyond understanding. But Sophia, only seeing things through the lens of her own learning, understood it differently. Sophia hoped to one day become an adventurer worthy of Oren, though she doubted if the day would ever come. The goal seemed so distant that it made her feel a pang of sadness. Without thinking, she hugged her sister tightly. Sophia greatly admired Selma, who had shown her a path different from the one their parents had planned. They always looked out for each other, and Sophia promised that her sister could count on her whenever she could offer help. At that moment, Selma turned to her sister and asked if she could share the bed with her. After what felt like an eternity, Selma's heart swelled with gratitude as Sophia agreed, and it seemed the bond between them was growing stronger. The next morning, Oren remained in bed, groaning from the aches in his muscles, a reminder of the previous day's fierce battle. Though he was relieved that no lasting harm had come from his reckless use of magic, a nagging doubt lingered. Had it been a magical blunder? He had returned home alone after leaving the labyrinth. Despite feeling sorrow for the clan, curiosity gnawed at him. What had transpired after his departure? Yet he hesitated to barge in unannounced. It felt too rude. So he decided to seek answers elsewhere, heading to the Adventurers Guild to learn more. Not long after, he found himself in a conference room, seated with Leon, the hero team, and the other guild executives. It was clear they, too, were eager to unravel the mystery of what had unfolded in the maze. Oren shared that he had only battled the Black Dragon, prompting Leon to glance at Runa. Runa quickly clarified that the matter of the Black Dragon's remains had been swiftly handled with the guild's assistance. All eyes then shifted to Oren, the hero of that fateful day. Leon asked if he had slain the Black Dragon alone, just as Selma had claimed. Oren paused, a wry thought crossing his mind. How could people be so foolish? Finally, he admitted that he had indeed defeated the beast on his own. He went on to describe the new attack patterns he'd mastered in battle, comparing them to past encounters. But before he could say more, Derek interjected, insisting that Oren had merely been lucky, claiming he only defeated the dragon after it had been weakened by Oliver and Anelli. Oren snapped, commanding Derek to shut his mouth. Derek's face turned red with rage. Oren, however, seemed indifferent to his outburst. Oren turned his attention to Oliver, asking why they'd risked entering the labyrinth so soon with a newly hired enchanter. He believed his old friend had made a rash, arrogant decision. To Oren's surprise, Oliver acknowledged that he was right. This admission triggered a flashback for Oren, a time when their team had nearly perished due to reckless decisions, having ventured deep into the labyrinth together. Oliver yelled, defending his decision, claiming that was the reason he had replaced the enchanter. Oren, however, wasn't upset about being left out of the team. What angered him was their utter lack of respect for support spellcasters. Oren truly believed that Oliver and the others had expected the new recruits to match his level of expertise from the start, though exploring the labyrinth required great bravery, especially for mages. What enraged Oren was Oliver's unrealistic expectations, and how a team could crumble despite B-list members understanding the crucial details. Meanwhile, Oliver, safe in his command, gave orders from a distance, but Oliver, it seemed, was too stubborn to see any of this. He dismissed the importance of support spellcasters, believing anyone could manage such spells. Oren wasn't finished. He began listing the faults within their team. He reminded them that caution should be their guiding principle from now on, especially when it came to this conversation. Oren quickly pointed out that a support mage typically casts up to 3 spells per teammate in a battle, with the timing of each spell varying. The room grew tense. Oren suggested they monitor all spell durations, refresh support magic as needed, and ensure they had the right spells for every situation. He proposed Oliver act as a command center, overseeing the team's coordination. Yet, it was clear that Oliver wasn't fully on board. Undeterred, Oren pressed on, asking if his former teammates were willing to cooperate.